ancient land. A people's revolution topples the president of Egypt.
Hosni Mubarak had decided to step down.
After 18 days of protests, an eruption of euphoria.
People are literally dancing in the street.
For now, the military's in charge, but the U.S. calls for free and fair elections.
But this is not the end of Egypt's transition. It's a beginning.
Tonight, Egypt, the road ahead.
From CBS News World Headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Katie Curry.
Good evening, everyone. They did it. After 18 days of demonstrations in Egypt, anti-government protesters succeeded in driving President Hosni Mubarak from office, an office he had held for nearly 30 years. His hand-picked vice president made the announcement just after 6 in the evening, Cairo time. And suddenly, the 11th of February looked like the 4th of July. Fireworks lit up the sky. Egyptians danced in the streets. Jubilation in Tahrir Square. Mubarak, who just hours earlier had refused to give up the presidency, flew with his family today to the Red Sea resort town of Sharm el-Sheikh. Egypt's military, in charge at least for now, promises a transition to democracy. At the White House, President Obama said the people of Egypt have spoken, but he said this is a beginning, not an end, and he called for free and fair elections. We have an entire team of correspondents covering this story. When word came out that Mubarak was out, Harry Smith was in the middle of Tahrir Square, and many hours later, he's still there.
Good evening, Katie. Even at this late hour, people continue to pour in here by the thousands and thousands. They want to be able to bear witness to this thing that's happened tonight. They want to be able to say, I was in Tahrir Square the night Egypt took a giant leap into the future.
Finally, we get our freedom!
This is what freedom looks and sounds like.
Today is celebration, celebration, celebration!
Virtually enslaved for 30 years, the people of Egypt rose up
Bye-bye, Mubarak!
and found their voice. Tonight, their prayers were answered. The newly named vice president just was on television and announced that Mubarak had stepped down. Thousands and thousands of people are coming from all over to join in the celebration in Tahrir Square. Could you believe this day actually happened?
No. It's like a dream. It's like a dream come true, and it happened so suddenly that we cannot imagine it at all. And everybody's happy and shocked at the same time.
Egypt's incredible people power, rich and poor, religious and secular. They stood together, not as factions, but as Egyptians.
I'm 23 years old, and I've never lived in a country where I felt safe around my people. This is the first time I can actually feel that the Egyptian people are united.
United and ennobled. This is the day Egyptians regained their dignity, and with it, dreams of possibility. Does this seem real? Does it seem real to you?
Yes, it seems like we can do anything. Nothing is impossible. We removed Mubarak, and we can do anything.
So this is the scene in Tahrir Square. People are literally dancing in the streets. There's a state of euphoria, a state of disbelief. People are almost afraid to believe what they know in their hearts is true, that Mubarak is gone.
Thank you, everybody in the world. Thank you.
There is euphoria and more. A message for neighbors and naysayers.
We want to live in peace with all our neighbors, including Israel. With democracy, we got it by our hand. And so, we are not going to give it away for anyone anymore. I am very, very happy. I'm Egyptian. We are Egyptian. Now, we are Egyptian. I love my country.
The celebration goes on into the night because this is a moment no one wants to lose hold of.
It means a new era, and I hope my daughter and the daughter of everybody in Egypt will live in light and freedom.
Here is not a on these streets tonight. We talked to people all day here who risked everything. Who risked everything in order to be here. And for tonight is only a night of celebration.
Harry Smith, thanks. Elizabeth Palmer has been covering these protests from the very beginning. Liz, Mubarak's departure was nothing short of stunning.
Katie, this has all happened with such blinding speed that it's left everybody, both participants and observers, reeling.
The end came in a terse 30-second statement from Egypt's vice president.
President
Mohammed Hosni Mubarak has decided to waive the office of the President of the Republic.
In Tahrir Square, there was instant jubilation.
All Egyptians are happy for this news.
This was the moment they'd fought and in some cases died for. The army had watched passively for 18 days as this revolution gathered force. Now it's in charge. Here's what we know about the new power structure. The defense minister, Mohammed Hossein Tantawi, heads the High Military Council, which is in charge. It's expected to dissolve both houses of parliament soon and manage a transition to elections with a civilian head of the Constitutional Court. The timing of all this remains unclear. In a televised statement tonight, a spokesman promised a legitimate government and then saluted those mostly young people killed in the uprising. It's easy to forget how uncertain things looked just 24 hours ago when the protesters were stunned by the president's announcement that he would not resign. But this morning, they rallied again, emboldened by a week's worth of grudging concessions from Mubarak.
I'm sure we are gaining. He doesn't want to let go easily, but we are definitely gaining.
One group marched on the presidential palace. Another blockaded state television.
Behind me is state television, which has been waging a sustained propaganda war against the demonstrators. Well, today, they've had enough. They've blockaded it so nobody can get in or out. The army is occupying it. The goal, of course, is to stop what they say are the lies.
It didn't take long. By afternoon, the besieged state TV was finally reporting honestly about the protests. It's been chaos here, says this announcer, and we were forced to tell you things we knew weren't true. Soon after state TV surrendered, so had the president.
I'm very optimistic about the future.
Unleashing the wild excitement of a victorious movement powered by Egypt's youth, who hope they have just launched the world's youngest democracy.
This is, in effect, a military coup, although it's a coup backed by popular will. But the military is giving strong signals that it's committed to some sort of transition to democracy, to representative government. Katie?
And Liz, what kinds of signals is the military sending? And are you getting any sense how long this military rule will last?
Well, we got a strong hint this morning. There was a specific statement from the military saying they would act as guarantors toward free and transparent elections for the presidency this fall. That's as far as it goes so far now. They've said they're going to issue a timeline in the next few days. Katie?
Liz Palmer in Cairo tonight. Liz, thank you. And those generals now running Egypt, they were all appointed by Hosni Mubarak. So how did he lose their support? Terry McCarthy now with that part of the story.
Hosni Mubarak's fate was sealed yesterday when a handful of top military leaders convened a Supreme Council and didn't invite the president to their first meeting.
We saw this meeting yesterday. All of us said it's a farewell for presidents.
Even before Mubarak announced he was stepping down, the Supreme Council was issuing communiques, promising to lift the 3-decade-long state of emergency and saying they would not detain protesters. As the protests grew larger this week and spread across the country, paralyzing the economy, the military was forced to choose. Either they had to ditch the president they ushered into power back in 1981, or shoot protesters in the streets. The protesters won. With 468,000 members, The Egyptian military is the largest in the Arab world. It controls an estimated 1/3 of the Egyptian economy, but is still respected by the people. In the past week, soldiers have earned more goodwill by effectively protecting the protesters in Tahrir Square against pro-Mubarak mobs.
They are great. They did a magnificent job keeping peace, keeping stability.
It was these street protesters that drove Mubarak from power, but everybody here knows that it couldn't have happened without at least the tolerance of the military.
Now the old president is gone, the military is in charge, responsible for answering the protesters' calls for democracy. The generals say they will amend the constitution to allow free elections in September.
The army will decrease gradually. Because you
6 months, 1 year?
Maybe less.
But the military will also come under scrutiny for its role in the economy.
The spotlight's going to be on the military, and the military are part and parcel of the old regime. They were brought in to the structure, the crony capitalism of this state.
For now, the protesters are largely happy that the military has taken over, but they do want the military to hand power back to civilian control soon, or they say the protests will start all over. Katie?
Terry McCarthy. Terry, thank you. President Obama was in the Oval Office when he got the word that Mubarak was stepping down. The president watched the celebrations in Cairo on television and a short time later made his first public statement. Chip Reid is at the White House tonight. Chip, it's been a very long week and the president seems to be very happy to see it end and in this way.
Oh, yes, Katie. After the dangerously unpredictable events of yesterday, today, the president sounded deeply relieved as he praised the Egyptian people for their courage.
The people of Egypt have spoken. Their voices have been heard, and Egypt will never be the same.
But while the euphoria continued in Egypt, President Obama had a warning that there will be difficult days ahead.
This is not the end of Egypt's transition. It's a beginning.
The beginning of a long, arduous path to democracy. With the first stage of that path now controlled by Egypt's military leaders, the president had a message for them, that they are only a temporary caretaker.
That means protecting the rights of Egypt's citizens, lifting the emergency law, revising the Constitution and other laws to make this change irreversible.
On this day, the president sounded victorious, but over the past 2.5 weeks, with events changing so fast on the ground, some analysts say the White House at times struggled to keep up.
It's been a tight wire act for the White House, and one that has seen, I think, some vacillations in terms of what we've said publicly and how we've tried to manage the environment.
And now that high wire balancing act is sure to continue as the people of Egypt focus on freedom and the military keeps its focus on stability. Katie?
Chip Reid at the White House. Chip, thank you. And still ahead here on the CBS Evening News, Cairo was not the only place Egyptians were cheering. Some were celebrating right here in the U.S. But up next, the Google executive who started a people's revolution through social media.